What's in a cough? How many times have you had someone cough on you? Well, most common and most severe is tuberculosis. Many third world countries have very high rates of tuberculosis. It's a very expensive disease to treat. It's a very expensive disease from an economic point of view. We went to one village in Indonesia where virtually all the adults, more than half of the adults that we saw, had active tuberculosis. We said, well, we need to protect ourselves. We're going to put masks on these people. So we gave them masks, and they coughed in their mask for about a half an hour and then gave it to their children to play with. That was an infectious disease nightmare. But I want you to realize that tuberculosis is out there. It's very difficult to treat. If you get plain old run-of-the-mill tuberculosis, you'll probably be taking treatment for 1 to 3 years, and it can also affect your ability to work in the healthcare industry. So it's important that you protect yourself from tuberculosis. A couple other things that are out there are multi-drug resistant and extremely drug resistant tuberculosis. These are very expensive to treat. You have to take treatment for many years. You can be isolated. You can be forcefully isolated if you have multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, and you can certainly die from that. This is one of those diseases that there just is no good treatment for. And you get it from a cough. Also, viral upper respiratory infections, including diphtheria. Diphtheria is something we take for granted in the United States, very, very rare here, quite common in some third world countries. It's hard to treat. It's a toxin-producing bacteria, and you get it from a cough. Not to mention plain old strep throat and just the upper respiratory colds and viruses. Mycoplasma, also known as walking pneumonia, very common thing to get, and you can get it from someone coughing in your direction. Now here's a disease that's really one of the scary ones. Meningitis, specifically pneumococcal meningitis, is a disease specific to healthy young people. Now anybody can get this disease, but it's most common and most fatal in healthy young people. There is a syndrome called Waterhouse-Friderichsen syndrome, or purpura fulminans, that is a meningococcal infection that proceeds very rapidly to total circulatory breakdown and death. Not too long ago, a youth worker returning from a mission trip in Mexico, as he was getting off of the airplane, he began to feel a little bit sick, just like a little flu-like illness. By the time he got home, he had a bruise on his inner thigh on his leg. Within a matter of 24 hours, he was in the hospital, massive antibiotic treatment, and he succumbed to the infection, basically one big bruise all over his body from meningitis. It's very easy to acquire, and it's very important, particularly if you're a young person in the under 50 age group, that you have an immunization for meningitis. Most colleges require that for admission, but if you have not been immunized, be sure that you get the meningitis immunization before you go to any third world country. And also, if you're exposed, you need to take medicine. So if you see or treat anyone that has meningitis or potentially has meningitis, you need to take post-exposure treatment, and you need not to stay alone, because this disease can develop very rapidly and can be very rapidly fatal. SARS, we've all heard about that. Ebola, still not certain how that's transmitted. There are a number of things that can be transmitted by a cough. When you cough, you're simply throwing little particles of infectious material all over. So, what do you do about that? Wear a mask. If you're going to be in contact with body fluids or anything that could splatter or spatter, wear an eye shield or eye protection, but particularly wear a mask. If you're treating someone that you know has tuberculosis, you need to wear a high quality respirating mask, and you need to put a mask on that patient as well. What's in dirt? I've heard all my life this expression, God made dirt so dirt won't hurt. And dirt, you know, it's just plain dirt down there, but what might be in the dirt that you're walking over? Well, hookworm disease. Primary cause of anemia worldwide, the hookworm larva lives in warm, moist, sandy soil. It bores through your skin, gets into your bloodstream, goes to your lungs, you cough it up, swallow it, and you have hookworm. Hookworm disease is the primary cause of anemia worldwide. Many of the places where we go, the people have hookworm disease almost constantly. How do you get it? You get it by putting your skin surface on the dirt. You say, well, I'm not going to walk around barefooted. Let me remind you that you have skin surfaces other places on your body, and the hookworm larva can bore through your clothing. If you sit on the ground, lie on the ground, sleep on the ground, without some impermeable membrane between you and the ground, you can get hookworm disease right through your skin. Leptospirosis is a disease that comes from contact with broken skin, even a cut or a hangnail, in any ground that has been urinated on by an infected animal. Now I'll tell you, when you go to a third world country, you probably won't find much ground that hasn't had animals urinating on it. So you need to be careful of this. Leptospirosis is a serious flu-like illness, but in about 5 to 10% of the people who have it, it develops into a more serious problem called Weil's disease, which includes renal failure, jaundice, pneumonitis, hemorrhage, hemodynamic collapse, and that's another way of saying you die from this. So you need to be careful about infected soil. Ground itch. Now, I told you how the hookworm larva bores up through your skin, gets into your bloodstream and goes to your lungs. Well, animals have a similar parasite that has a similar life cycle, but their larvae cannot get into your bloodstream. So they bore through your skin and they go around underneath your skin looking for access into your circulatory system. They don't find any, but they do set up a terrible inflammatory process under your skin. And I mean, this itches terribly. You think you're just going to dig your skin off, and it's very difficult to get rid of. So again, you get that from any skin surface, even with clothing over it, contacting infected soil. Chigos. You say, well, I know what chiggers are. Chigger's that little mite that gives you an itch. Well, chigos are something quite different. Chigo is a mite that lives in the sandy soil in warm countries. The name of that mite is Tunga penetrans. And what the chigo does is it bores up through the sole of your foot and produces a giant egg sac in your foot. And these can be the size of a marble or larger. And if you get several of them, they're very uncomfortable. They have to be removed surgically. There's no medical treatment for them. So that's a severe problem. Staph. Staph infection is found in the ground. Staph is a common ground bacteria. Impetigo is a common staph infection. But you find staph in the ground. Also tetanus. Anything that's in the ground can have tetanus bacteria on it. Don't forget that all dirt may have been used as a toilet. Anywhere you find soil, someone has probably used that area as a toilet at some time in the past. So what do we do about that? Don't sit on the ground and don't go barefooted. If you're going to sit, sit on a chair, sit on a plastic, sit on some impermeable surface, and keep your shoes on all the time.